Your pitch just got rejected by the top investors in the room, and instead of crumbling, you rewrote it and closed the deal. So what exactly did you change? Today we are breaking down the brutal, humbling, and ultimately triumphant process of turning a no into a yes when the stakes couldn't be higher. Let's be honest, most first pitches are basically a founder standing in front of strangers, sweating through their shirt, and reciting a love letter to their own idea. The problem isn't passion. It's that investors don't fund passion, they fund clarity, and there is a massive difference between the two. Think of your original pitch like a restaurant menu written entirely in the chef's native language. You might love every dish, but if your customer can't read it, they're walking out hungry. The catalyst for most rejections isn't a bad idea. It's a communication gap dressed up as a conviction problem. You probably walked into that first meeting riding high on 3 customer wins, a slick deck, and the kind of optimism that makes you think you're one handshake away from a term sheet. Then the feedback came back thin, vague, or worse, total silence, and that early momentum started feeling a lot more like a mirage. Peter Thiel once said that a startup messed up at its foundation cannot be fixed. But what most people miss is that your pitch times is times your foundation in that room. When your framing is off, even a brilliant business looks shaky, and doubt spreads faster than confidence ever could. Now here's the irony. The investors who rejected you weren't necessarily wrong, and the version of you who wrote that first pitch wasn't necessarily incompetent. Every great founder has a version 1 deck rotting somewhere in their Google Drive. And that's not a tragedy, that's tuition. Historically, the most fundable companies weren't always the most innovative ones in the room. They were the ones that made the investor feel like times, not times, investing was the real risk. Understanding that psychological flip is the single biggest unlock between a polished pitch and a funded one. One common misconception is that rejection means your idea is bad, when really it almost always means your story is incomplete. Investors are pattern matching machines, and if your narrative doesn't fit a pattern they recognize as winnable, they opt out. It's not personal, it's probabilistic. So when you go back to the drawing board, the first thing you cut is everything that sounds like you're explaining the business to yourself. The second thing you add is a razor-sharp answer to the question every investor is silently asking: why will this be worth 10 times my money in 5 to 7 years? The rewrite isn't about dumbing it down. It's about sharpening the signal so that the right people lean in instead of lean back. You want your pitch to feel less like a presentation and more like an inevitable conclusion the investor arrives at on their own. Practice your new pitch with people who will actively try to poke holes in it, not people who love you and want you to succeed. The version that survives 10 hard questions in a row is the version that closes a room. Position size your conviction. Don't bet your entire identity on one pitch cycle, the way you wouldn't bet your entire portfolio on a single trade. Discipline, process, and the willingness to iterate without ego are what separate founders who eventually close from founders who eventually quit. At the end of the day, getting rejected and rewriting your pitch isn't a detour, it's the road itself. And every great funding story has a "we almost didn't make it" chapter buried inside it. The founders who close aren't always the smartest in the room, they're the most relentlessly coachable. And if you're sitting on a rejected pitch right now, treat it like a rough cut, not a final verdict. Because the gap between where you are and where you need to be is almost always smaller than it feels at 2 in the morning. Whether you're pitching investors, lenders, or your own doubting inner voice, the answer is always a better, cleaner, braver version of the truth. If any of this resonates and you're ready to take your next step, whether that's real estate investing, home contracting work, or finding the right lenders to back your vision, check out our links in the description below and let's get you started.